right, now we're going to go ahead and start Unit 6, which is finding a place to live, or housing is the unit. So the first chapter is finding a place to live. We've got 4 objectives today. I will calculate the affordability of a monthly rent. I will determine the relationship between square footage and monthly rent. I will determine lease signing costs, and I will calculate moving expenses. Here you've got your vocabulary for the chapter. Make sure you've reviewed that before going in and working through the problems. All right, example 1, it says Alex makes $61,992 per year, and he pays about 25% of his gross monthly income in state and federal taxes. He wants to find an apartment to rent, estimate how much he can afford in rent each month, then determine how much he will have after everything is all paid. So, before we can go much further, we need to know that a good measure for rent is to be about 25 to 30% of your monthly gross income. So if we look at that, we've got $61,992. We need to divide that by 12 so that we can find out what his actual monthly income is. And when we do that in the calculator, we find it to be $5,166. So now it's just a matter of finding out what 25% of that value is and what 30% of that value is. And then we have a range of what Alex should be paying for this rent. So I'm looking at $1,291.50 at 25% and $1,549.80 at 30%. So it's actually a range, and it's given as $1,291.50 to $1,549.80. And that's where he should be with his costs for his monthly rent. All right, please press pause. Go ahead and read through this, see if you can answer it, and then come back and we'll work this through together. Okay, it says Bethany's monthly gross income is $3,840. So where the previous problem, it gave us the annual income and we had to divide it by 12 to get it to monthly, we don't have to do that here because it already gave us Bethany's income as monthly. She pays 24% in federal and state taxes, 15% for a student loan, and 15% towards a credit card. She wants an apartment that will cost $1,800. Will she be able to make the payments and without changing any of what she's paying now? Well, I need to find out 24%, 15%, and 15% of that $3,840. So when I calculate that, I end up with $921.60 and $576 2 times. I then add those together and I end up with $2,073.60. Finally, we're going to take her $3,840 monthly income, subtract the $2,073.60, and we find that she has $1,766.40 left to spend. So no, she will not have enough. She's short by about $33.60. Okay, example 2. It says Rufus and Maria have been offered new jobs in a different city. The real estate broker sent them a list of apartments with their desired location, showing square footage in each apartment. Use the linear regression analysis to determine if there is a correlation between the square footage and the rental property and for the amount charged in monthly rent. What is the linear regression equation? And interpret this correlation coefficient. So the first thing that we're going to do, we need to know how to work our TI-83, and I did put a tutorial at the beginning of this unit that I want to make sure that you've looked at before you go through and have us work through this. Okay? So, first thing that we need to do is go to our Stat button on our TI-83. And our Stat button can be found. If you look where it says the second key and it's in yellow, it's on the far left side towards the top, and then right below it is the alpha key. 2 over from there you will see the Stat key, and I need you to go ahead and push it. Edit will be highlighted, so you're just going to go ahead and hit enter, and when you do that you're going to see some list. It'll say L1 and L2. And what I need you to do is go ahead and list all of the given values here for list 1, and then move over and list all of them for list 2. Go ahead and press pause while you do this. Come back to me when you're ready. Okay, hopefully now you've entered them in. Make sure that the amount of items that you've got in L1 matches L2, and that the amounts line up with what they do on our chart here. Now you're going to hit Stat again. It's that same button, but now you're going to move over one to Calc, and you're going to go down to number 4 where it says LINREG. And then it says in parentheses AX plus B. And I need you to hit enter and then hit enter again. And what you're going to get there is it'll tell you A equals 0.906157342, which we're going to round in a second. And B, I'll go ahead and round that out right now, was 403.087. So we know from the indicator here that the equation is y equals ax plus b. It's just a matter of plugging them in. And again, I'm going to go ahead and round when I do that. So our equation is y equals 0.91. You can see here the 6 tells us that we're going to round this up to a 1. And it's 91x plus b, which is 403.09. And there is our linear regression equation. So let's go ahead and move on to the you-do. I want you to go ahead and press pause, take a second, see if you can figure this out. Press play when you're ready and we'll figure it out together. Okay, it says based on example 2, what is a good estimate for the amount of monthly rent charged for an 880 square foot apartment? So before we can go much further, we need to understand that Y is the cost of the apartment and X is the square footage. Remembering that our equation was Y equals 0.91x plus 403.09. Now we're going to go ahead and plug it in, and hopefully you were able to identify that you're plugging that in for X because it's the square footage. So 880 plus 403.09. Once I multiply these through, I get 880 cents plus the 403.09. So I'm looking at $1,203.89 for an 880 square foot apartment. All right, example 3. It says Rufus and Maria paid a $200 application deposit for an 1,150 square foot apartment in example 2. They're required to provide a credit report which costs $25, pay security deposit of 1 month's rent, and the landlord also requires the last month's rent at the time of signing the lease. The broker charged 10% of the yearly rent. How much should they be expected to pay at closing? All right, in order to find this out, let's go ahead and back up for just a second And if we look at our chart, it was talking about the 1,150 square foot apartment. So we're looking at $1,595 per month. So now let's just break all those costs out. We had a $200 application fee, a $2,500 credit report fee, sorry, not 2,500, 25. 1 month's rent for security deposit, so $1,595 for the security deposit. Next we had last month's rent of $1,595. So that's last month. And then we have this month's rent, the first month's rent of $1,595. And now we just have to figure out the broker fee. So the broker fee is 10% of the yearly rent. So I have to take the $1,595 and multiply it by 12 to get 1 month out to a year. And I end up with $19,140. Remembering that it's 10% of that value, I'll multiply it by 0.10 and I end up with $1,914. Now, once I add all of these values together, let's go ahead and grab that calculator. I've got 200 plus 25. I've got $1,595 3 times and the $1,914. And I find that my total due at lease signing is $6,924. All right, go ahead and press pause, solve this, come back when you're ready, and we'll finish this out. Okay, Larry is renting an apartment that will cost our dollars per month. He has to pay a $100 application fee, $25 credit fee. Security deposit for this one is 2 months' rent, and he has to pay the last month's rent as well. His broker is charging 5% of the year's rent. So let's express it in terms of R. So we have first the $100 for the application fee, the $25 for the credit fee, plus we have 2 months rent, so that's R plus R because R equals our rent. So that's our security deposit. Plus we have the last month's rent, plus we have the first month's rent, and then we have the 5% broker fee. So in order to get that, we need to take the rent times 12 times the 0.05, which ends up being 0.6 R. So we have 100 plus 25 plus R plus R plus R plus R plus 0.6 R. If I combine those, I've got 125 plus 1, 2, 3, 4, and 0.6, 4.6 R, and there is our equation algebraically. So we're going to go ahead and cut the video off here and go ahead and go to video B for the last couple of examples in this particular chapter. Good job, everyone.